All right, what's up, y'all? Happy Sunday night. Chris, I hope you're ready because we're going to be putting you under the gun, get it, tonight with the little gun quiz show. But how are you doing, buddy? It's good to see you.
Good. I didn't know it was under the pun. It's a
Oh, there
pun
we go.
quiz.
Hey, oh.
I'm doing well. I went to a movie theater for the first time since COVID started today. Saw A Quiet Place Part 2. It was great, just as good as the first one. And it was nice to get out and go to a movie theater and have that experience again.
I haven't even done that yet. We've done water parks and stuff like that, but we haven't gone to movie theaters. So maybe I'll add that to my list. But that's great, man. That's awesome. And then Kyle, I believe you're on vacation, so thank you so much. That is commitment right there. Signing in from vacation, you get the
Yeah,
beard
man.
trim, you get the haircut. I'm proud of you. Great.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks. We're under the gun. We're under the pun. I've been out under the sun. If we're going to
There we
continue
go.
this, so there you go.
Just
But yeah, man, happy to. I wouldn't miss this. I've been excited to be talking about Second Amendment issues, and excited to see how Chris does tonight. I think he's going to do okay.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. So we've been talking the Second Amendment for the past couple of weeks. We did immigration before that, and I love the chance to do just a little game show, little trivia action. So we're gonna get into that. But first, I got to share with you our meme of the week as I came across this totally different topic, but I love it. It's just been fantastic. As I found this one from Fauci with his emails, and you gotta. I mean, as a libertarian, Kyle, when you see Rand Paul, because he is all over this one, getting into
Yeah.
those emails and talking about him and some of the misleading information and things like that. I mean, what are your reactions? We won't make this a major topic, but
Sure.
I gotta love this. So you tell me
Well,
what you.
yeah. Yes, I mean Rand Paul has been putting Fauci, taking it to Fauci basically every 2 weeks
Yeah.
since we've all gotten to know who Anthony Fauci was.
Right.
And honestly, this week has been his opportunity, not just this week, to say, "I told you so. I told you so" from the beginning. Forget Rand Paul is an actual medical doctor. So is his father. Sorry, Ron Paul. Yeah, Rand. So the son's Rand. Yeah. Both of them medical doctors. So it's not like they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to medicine. Obviously, they have a specialty that's not um, in this sort of thing, but
Yeah.
still scientists and still in the medical facility. So, yeah, definitely Rand Paul's opportunity to say, "I told you so." And I really love this meme. I really love that Chelsea Clinton, I don't know if you guys saw this, check her Twitter. I believe Chelsea Clinton shared this earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday. And she said something to the effect of, this is not even funny. Like, stop it. This is childish or whatever.
It's a
And
little
so,
funny.
yeah, it's pretty funny. Let's be honest.
I mean, you tell me your
But
honest opinion, Chris, but yes, it's a little funny.
Well, I mean, okay,
Real
Rand
quick.
Paul is an eye doctor. So let's not get carried away. But okay, you have to inform me because I have not kept up with this. What exactly was in the emails that was damning?
Go ahead, Kyle. I'll give you my take.
Well, yeah. So again, I'm on vacation last couple of days and things like that. So I haven't dug into it mostly, but there's a lot of things that other epidemiologists not Rand Paul, told Fauci, that we should not be locking down, that the better method was to quarantine a select group of, immunocompromised individuals, and the rest of the population should be continuing to live their life, as normal. Segment the people who are the highest at risk, but the rest of the world continue to live pretty much as normal. And not just that, there were a lot of things, and his response to that was basically the letter K. Yeah, okay, cool, got it. So, of course, we all respond to emails differently, but, just to see that other leading epidemiologists from around the world, these are not just Joe Schmoes, these are, peer-reviewed, like respected people in their fields, basically saying that we should not be doing the things that Fauci has recommended.
Well,
And just to see his neglect and his arrogance, honestly, in those emails is pretty absurd.
and then there's
But I
the
think
whole.
the epidemiologists were pretty clearly wrong. I mean, if you look at the death toll, which was many times what we thought it would be under even the worst case scenario, I think that's really borne Fauci out. I think if we had had less strict lockdowns, I think we'd have a lot more dead people today. That's my take.
Yeah, I know. There's the other piece of it, which is the origins, right? Where
Right.
Fauci is completely
That's true.
shutting down any type of investigation or even conversation about that amongst the different folks when, people are wanting to know what's going on. Where did this come from? And, that's taboo subject right? And then you find out that he has investments with the lab and things like that.
Mhm.
Conflict
That's
of
right.
interest, like, it's getting pretty interesting. So we'll see.
Right.
We'll see what comes from it. I think that's going to be a topic for another time, but I look forward to getting into it as we get more and more information.
Yeah.
But let's get back to our Second Amendment quiz because we've got to wrap this topic up. And I think we start to do that tonight by seeing what Chris's knowledge truly is on the Second Amendment. And, I think I'm going to be surprised. But, hey, first off, we're going to just throw you off guard because Kyle discovered Photoshop apparently the other day. And I believe this is Boondock Saints. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's Il Duce from Boondock Saints, a not very good movie. But yeah, I thought I could take my time doing like a really good Photoshop job, but I honestly just thought the Hatchet job was so much funnier.
I love
I
your
want to
honest
learn.
reaction.
Where did you get the picture of me?
Don't worry about it, man. Listen, we're friends on Facebook. You think I can't look through your pictures? Come on, man.
You look so happy. Like, I don't know what you were doing in the picture, but you look fantastic. I mean, that is a really fun firefight, right? That you're going in.
That's exactly right.
So the way this is going to work is I've got our little sound effects here, which we always do for our game shows. And you're going to hear that trivia music in the background. You've got 5 questions, Chris, and then Megan, who's also a contributor to our show, will get a chance for her to answer some questions as well, and we'll see who comes out on top. And of course, I've got Trump is going to help me if you get it wrong. He's always here.
Wrong.
There we go. Trump is available, and then if you get it right, you get a little ding right there. So we'll give you.
Are there any questions tonight about Trump's pants?
I don't know.
Because I'm very about that. Okay.
Yeah, no. Purely Second Amendment is the topic. And of course, as always, if you're watching this live, it looks like we got about 5 or 6 folks that are watching live. Feel free to help Chris. We're going to keep it at about 30 seconds. But if you're watching this, I know there's a delay of like 5 or 6 seconds. Feel free to help him out if you know the answer. So that is fair game to help Chris out because some of these are a little bit tough. So, question number 1. Approximately about how many guns are privately owned in America? Is it A, 180 million, B, 260 million, C, 390 million, or D, 600 million? What do you think, buddy?
Okay, well, as a teacher, I know the answer is usually B. I feel like it is B. I feel like it's 260 million.
You feel like it?
But I
Or
could
do you know it?
I feel like it could also be 390 million.
All right.
So I'm gonna go with B.
You're going to go with B. All right. So he says 260 million, and the actual answer is 390.
Wrong.
Trump, help me out. Wrong.
That was my second choice.
So 0 for
That's
1.
right. If you were, I know you're a teacher, but I think that if you were more recently a student, you would always know that C is the correct answer when you don't know the answer to the question. C.
I've heard that before too, but it's been a long time since I've been like in grade school. But hey, you weren't that far off. I mean, 260 to 390. And there's really no like, gimme on that one. So not bad, not bad. Let's see what you got for number 2. Get our trivia music going in. About how many NICS background checks were run for firearm purchases in 2020? Is it, again, quantitative question, is it 8 million, B, 12 million, C, 17 million, or D, 21 million? And
So let me put a little context on this question for Chris. So the NICS background check is the federal background check, which means anytime you buy a gun from a federal firearms licensed dealer, so like a gun store, or if you go to a gun show, you have to buy it from a dealer. They're going to run a federal background check on who's going to check a lot of different things. So this is basically the number of firearms sold at gun shows and also in gun stores for the year 2020. So pandemic year, keep that in mind. Pandemic year, riots all about. So a lot of different things out there.
I feel like that's a hint there.
Yeah, definitely firearm purchases went up in 2020, but I did not know this quiz would involve so many numbers. I'm going to go with 21 million.
21 million. He's going with D. So you're ignoring the B and the C. You're just out of there.
I think it's a lot. So,
Shot in the dark, 21 million. What do we got? D, 21 million.
Right.
And it looks like you got some help here from whatever this clever YouTuber. So congratulations. 21 million. You are 1 for 2. That ain't
Hey,
bad.
way to go.
That ain't bad.
Way to go,
With a
Chris.
shot in the dark too. Like
Some of the best information about this is that many of those were first time purchasers, not just people who had guns like me. These were first time purchasers, and in fact, so many of these were people of color, women, LGBTQ. So it's not just your typical, red state Republicans that were arming up this year. It was a pretty big year for guns from every denomination, every political belief, race, color,
Methodist
belief,
and,
whatever.
and Southern
Let's,
Baptists are all going together.
let's arm everybody. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. 21
I have heard that the fastest growing demographic of gun owners is what, women?
Yeah, women, and specifically Black people. Yeah,
Interesting.
Yep.
Very, very interesting. I did not know that. So I learned something here on the quiz too. All right. Now we're on to question 3. All right. And for those watching live, let me know what you think, and I'll throw your answer here so Chris can take a look at it and consider it. What does semi-automatic mean? Does it mean A, once you pull the trigger, you have multiple bullets? B, once you pull the trigger, you have 1 bullet? C, no trigger pull is necessary? D, it doesn't matter, guns are scary, ban them all?
Obviously, there was a time in my life where I definitely would have picked D. I'm a little more centrist on guns now. I was just reading about this issue too, so I feel like I should know this. I feel like 1 pull of the trigger, multiple bullets is automatic, not semi-automatic. And then no trigger pull necessary. It's not like a magic gun, so can't be that. But 1 pull of the trigger, 1 bullet, isn't that almost all guns? But I think it's got to be B, because it's semi-automatic and automatic are not the same thing.
That's what your audience
I'm gonna
is saying. Whatever's
And whatever,
B is
the only helpful YouTuber is helping me out, so I'm going to go with B.
the only helpful you. All right. So, final answer is B. 1 pull of the trigger, 1 bullet. Let's see. And you are correct again. Look at you.
there he is.
2
Coming through strong.
Great.
That's right. This is one of the biggest areas of confusion in the gun debate. There are a lot of people, including people from like Fox News and what we call conservative or pro Second Amendment news sources, who get this wrong all the time. In fact, they even make up new terms like fully semi-automatic. That was a really big one on CNN last year. They called it a fully semi-automatic. That's a nonsense term. It doesn't mean anything. But yeah, so people hear the word automatic, they think, they read a news story that, someone can just pull a trigger on a gun and 30 bullets will fly out, before you know it. And that's just not true. Almost every gun, designed in the last 100 years or so is a semi-automatic, which means you pull the trigger once, 1 bullet comes out. That's it. You cannot shoot multiple times without multiple trigger pulls.
I mean, I was just trying to understand C. No trigger pull is necessary. Like, does it makes its own decision?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Guns kill people, right? Isn't that the narrative, that guns kill people? It's not the person. So you don't even have to pull the trigger. The gun will do the work for you.
Yeah, this is by far your most overtly aggressive question. So no passive aggressiveness there.
No.
Automatic weapons. Let me get our music going here. Automatic weapons, 1 trigger pull, multiple bullets. You, by the way, you're correct on that, Chris. Are readily available and easy to access for non-military civilians. True or false?
Well, going with what Kyle's purpose here is, which is guys for the gun lobby. I assume he's being paid by the NRA. I've got to go with false.
Do they still exist? All right. Let's go with false.
That's the right answer.
He'll never see that money. I'm not saying he'll actually be paid.
Yay!
Yeah. Way to go, kid. You're doing so good. That's right. Automatic weapons are the type where you can pull the trigger and bullets will fly out indiscriminately and kill women and babies. Just they'll seek them out. That is not a thing. In fact, it's incredibly, incredibly, incredibly difficult for the average person to buy an automatic weapon. First, they don't sell them in America anymore, and if you do, you have to go through super extensive background checks. They're super, super expensive. They're just totally impractical. They're hard to get. They're almost impossible to get.
But
really.
This is a good point. Is you think about, there is some condition to the Second Amendment, because I get equally frustrated on the conservative side when we make the rights absolute, and they aren't, right? They aren't. There is a context in which they were written. There is some level, and now it's not nearly as much. In my opposition to Chris, it's not nearly as much as some liberals would say. But there is some piece to this. I mean, because we, with my background in the military, we get into all sorts of different systems, and I mean, just the amount of firepower that could be designed for an individual human could be absolutely ridiculous, especially if someone had the money to be able to afford it. As you think about these personal surface-to-air missile systems and things like that, and it's just at that point it really isn't practical. It's terrifying. And
we could talk about that, and I actually would probably come down on the opposite side from that, obviously. Yeah, it definitely limits this. Let me go back to this NRA thing real quick, by the way. Gun people like me, like real gun people, we hate the NRA. The NRA is kind of a joke organization. Wes even kind of mentioned it because they're still around. They're a joke organization. They don't lobby for the things that actual gun owners want. They cave on literally everything. So yeah, that was honestly hurtful, Chris, to associate me with the NRA. It was hurtful. How am I going to go back to my gun friends and tell them that you thought I was part of the NRA? Get out of here.
That was a bonus question. Is Kyle part of the NRA? Yes, or no? You got your answer there.
I actually am a lifetime member a long time ago, but I've wised up and I do other things.
All right. Now we are on to our final question, and that is, which of the guns depicted there is semi-automatic? And if you need me to expand this image, I'm more than happy to. In fact, I will.
Yeah. While Chris is thinking, let's go through. Well, that's all right. We'll address this comment later. But whatever, the YouTuber has a great comment there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. A looks the scariest, but I feel like that's a red herring. Like, I feel like that's designed to trick me.
Yeah.
I don't think it could be B or D, but again, that could be designed to trick me.
So I'll break down some of these firearms for you. So the first one is your typical AR-15, right? Your typical rifle. Most common rifle in America, the AR-15. B is just a typical handgun. It's a Glock 19. It's the most common handgun in the world. It's what most police carry. It's what most civilians, if they get into firearms, that's a typical gun. C is a shotgun. It's a Beretta 1301. It's a shotgun. And then D is what's called an M1 Garand. It's a historic weapon. And I can give some more history later, but I'll leave you there.
And as we all know, Kyle, and I'm sure this won't set you off on another rant, AR-15 does stand for Assault Rifle 15, no?
That's a question later on in the quiz. Yeah.
I am anticipating it already. I am going to go with A.
Going with A? Are you sure? Because
no, I'm going to go with C.
You go with C? Okay. Listen, that's right. Use some test strategy. You're going with C.
All right, I'm just trying to keep up.
Okay, now whatever is clever is changing his answer and saying B.
Yes, he's saying
how can that be semi-automatic?
Seems to be some confusion.
So think again what a semi-automatic is. It's one trigger pull, the bullet comes out, and then the action cycles a new bullet into the chamber. It won't fire it until you pull the trigger, but that's where the automatic part comes from. It automatically loads the next bullet into the chamber for you.
All right, I'm going with B.
I feel like he's going to be livid as a teacher after he sees the answer, Kyle.
He will be, yeah.
The actual answer is, I guess,
all of them. Trick.
All of them. Yeah.
Like,
wrong.
You gotta put in all of the above, man. You gotta
there it is. Like there, I knew the teacher was gonna freak out.
That's fair. Yeah, the truth is, again, almost every gun designed after like 1900 is a semi-automatic. The only ones that are not semi-automatic are ones that you actually have to manually load. It's like a pump-action shotgun. You've seen those, like like that, or like a revolver where you actually have to pull the hammer back and it rotates the barrel, the cylinder. Or like a bolt action rifle where it's like a sniper rifle, you gotta bolt the action and stuff.
Immediately
like
go to like movies about the Revolutionary War where they're standing in lines trying to like reload while waiting to get shot,
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, these are all semi-automatic weapons. Almost every gun made in the last 120 years or so is a semi-automatic weapon. So when you get people like Kevin De Leon or even Joe Biden or people like that saying we have to ban assault rifles or we have to ban semi-automatic weapons, that's literally almost every gun, literary gun of the last 120 years.
I guess what you're saying with this gun debate and this discussion, Kyle, is that things are not always as they appear.
Well, that's right. And also, I mean, yeah, and this is true for Republicans. I'll admit this too, right? Republicans often try to legislate areas that they really know nothing about. They won't do the research to understand the issue. We see that on the left with guns, especially. There's a guy named Kevin Daly. I don't know. Did you get that video, Wes?
I don't have it available, but we'll have it for our next episode.
Yeah, that's okay. So there's the politician who is introducing some gun legislation in California. He's a state politician, and literally holds up a gun and then just spews just words that sound scary and puts them together. Calls the thing a 30 caliber clip, a 30 magazine clip, and like those are things that are kind of related to guns, but they mean nothing in that context. And we see Joe Biden do the same thing where he, it's the buy a shotgun advice, blast 2 shots in the air. Like that's really terrible, stupid advice on a lot of different levels.
Sure.
But it just goes to show that people, may be passionate about an issue, may feel a certain way about an issue, but honestly, when it comes down to it, know nothing about it, and therefore should have no business regulating it.
Well, so and talk to me about this whole comment of Trump was the worst on the Second Amendment. What is your take on that, Kyle? What kind of?
Yeah, well, I would say of the presidents that we've had so far, that's an accurate statement for sure. Maybe Ronald Reagan would be the second worst president, believe it or not, when it comes to Second Amendment issues. And if you remember, we talked about David Chipman last week in the ATF and about how the ATF will, with a stroke of a pen, reinterpret a law or reinterpret an edict from a president or an executive order and wholesale just make millions of people felons. And that's exactly what Trump did when it came to bump stocks. If you remember the Las Vegas shooting, the alleged shooter was using what they call bump stocks, which is a way to manipulate the trigger to make it fire more quickly, basically. It's wholly inaccurate. No serious shooter uses that because it makes your gun super inaccurate and it's just a waste. But because that's what the shooter used, as is often the case, we latch onto one specific thing and we kind of make that the sacrificial lamb. So Trump got in his mind that we're going to ban bump stocks because that's what this shooter used. Well, instead of going to Congress and saying, "Hey, we should legislate bump stocks, we should get those out of circulation," what he did was go to the ATF, the Department of Justice, and say, "Hey, listen, I'd like for you to write a new memo saying that bump stocks, the way that you've interpreted bump stocks since the beginning, since they've been on the market, is no longer how we're going to interpret or enforce that." And so he literally got the ATF to come in, reinterpret the law that. Reinterpret a law that they've been interpreting a certain way since the beginning. And therefore, anyone who owned a bump stock after that law or after that new interpretation is automatically a felon because you can't have it after the law is interpreted that way. That's not how we do laws in this country, right? That's the problem with the ATF. And that was also Trump's problem. He also said things like endorsing red flag laws, which are about taking guns before a person commits a crime. We'll get into that maybe a little bit later. But he said, "I like to take the guns first and then do due process." Well, that's not how our Constitution is set up. We have due process for a reason. You can't just go in and take people's private property on the assumption of a crime because, again, we have due process. So, yeah, Trump advocated for a lot of things, both advocated for pre-election, but then also during his presidency, things that were just horrible, horrible things for the Second Amendment.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Your reaction to that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, Trump wasn't great on civil liberties, period. So it doesn't really surprise me that he wasn't great on respecting the Second Amendment rights of people. I remember he was also signing on to some Democratic bill, or at least proposal, where they wanted people on like the no-fly list.
Yeah.
I cannot remember the exact details of that, but I remember opposing it at the time, even before I knew Trump supported it. It was a very ridiculous standard as far as like what kind of people would be put on the no-fly list. But I cannot remember exactly what.
Yeah, no fly, no buy is a common rhetoric from the gun control crowd, and there's a lot of problems with that. One of those things again is infringing on someone's right to do something without actually having committed a crime. There are a lot of people who are on the no-fly list who have never ever committed any sort of crime, so it's obviously a violation of their rights there. And so, yeah, Trump definitely was probably on board with that. No surprise there.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. I mean, it's very educational. I appreciate it, Kyle. Thank you for what you've done with the quiz. And Chris, you did well. I mean, I'm impressed. You got 2 out of 5. So we'll see. We've got a bunch more questions. We'll get Megan under the gun next time for this quiz. And I'm looking forward to doing this a few more times. So thank you for those that were watching live and helping us out with this. We'll continue this subject, I think, for a couple more weeks, because I do think it's important to be able to get through the complexities of it. And it's in those complexities that we find out that stuff isn't always the way we think it is. And maybe we have points of agreement. I would have loved to have seen, some different ways to approach it, like what you're talking about, Kyle, even as a conservative, as someone who has at times supported Trump in many of the things he's did. When you talk about it that way, it kind of brings other things to light that I hadn't really considered. So really fascinating. So thank you guys for being part of the quiz. We are going to take a break from Conservatism on Tap. Our next show for tonight, we'll have that back up, getting into critical race theory, something that I know we've talked about on this show before. But thank you guys for being part of it. Thanks for following the channel. Don't forget, on the BreakingConservative.com, you can see all the episodes that we've done in the past, as well as on our YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those different places. So Kyle, Chris, any last words? Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, I'll let Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, I did okay. Didn't do great, but I hope Megan does worse. That's all I can say.
Well, you look good doing it. I mean, just look at that photo.
That's right.
Had a great
That's
time.
right.
Learned a lot. All right,
I'll have to
guys.
put my face on it next time.
You guys have a great weekend, and I will see you next week for round 2.